morning, everyone. I'm Arabina Apia, and you're watching a very special edition of A Closer Look. Welcome to ACL Presents Budget 2024, Changing the Status Quo, Changing Lives. Today, we're coming to you live from Rawson Square with exclusive commentary, budget analysis, and deep insights into the government's fiscal strategy for the next year. Now, whether you fully understand it or not, government's budgets play a crucial role in the overall management of our national affairs. They determine how public funds are allocated to critical areas such as education, health, infrastructure, and more. You'll hear from members of government and some of the country's finest financial minds, as well as my very special guest, Mr. Marcos Ambrister. How you doing, sir?
It's always a pleasure to be on set with you,
Always,
Robin.
right? We have fun together, don't we?
We certainly do.
So today is a huge day, Marcos. We are talking the budget. We are talking all of the government's fiscal plans, its strategies. What are you looking forward to hearing most from the Prime Minister today?
I think I'm looking forward to finding what the Davis administration's priorities are going to be for the 2024 to 2025 fiscal year. Of course, I know that a lot of people are not budget educated, so of course we know that that will run from July 1st of 2024 to June 30th of 2025. I'm looking to see what are the pressing areas that will, of course, where the money will be spent, whether that be in our national security, whether that's education, youth, health. Of course, we know the Prime Minister's plan and his administration's plan to start a new hospital. Where are those funds going to be raised? Revenue. Where are we looking to source our monies from? What's the stance of our economy at the moment? Where is tourism and where's the debt? All of these things are the things that I'm looking forward to.
Listen, those are some heavy, heavy topics indeed. And so I'm very excited. I hope you're very excited too.
I want to talk to the regular Bahamian to find how they feel about the budget
Absolutely. Today. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an ACL special presentation, and we are coming to you live from Rawson Square, where in just a few moments, Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip Davis, will give his official budget presentation. I am here with Latreille Ramming of the Office of the Prime Minister, as well as Shantez Gillette-Wilson. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. In your opinion, what should Bahamians be listening most attentively for?
Well, I think that we'll have a lot of exciting new announcements with regards to the fiscal position of the Bahamas. I know that doesn't sound like the most exciting thing for most Bahamians, but it really is a harbinger for better times to come. We've made so much progress with regards to closing the deficit, putting the country in a better, more balanced position as a country. And I know that, once again, that sounds very high level, but think of it as your own budget. Your wallet is always better when it has a surplus, not a deficit. We're getting there, and we've been working very hard and made a lot of strides in the last 3 years.
I know that there are some major key priorities that the Office of the Prime Minister has been really focused on, and I would like you to share those with our viewing audience.
So I think the key priorities for the government of the Bahamas is crime, education, healthcare, cost of living, and investment in jobs and security. And so one of the things that you'll see from the Prime Minister today is the continuation of those priorities. I think it's really important to reiterate to the viewing audience that budgets, every single budget is tied together. They're a continuation of a government's long-term strategy. By law, the last Wednesday in the month, the Minister of Finance is required to come to the House to really seek permission to finance the government new fiscal period. And I think that the government's theme, changing the status quo, changing lives, this encompasses the focus of the government in this fiscal period.
Mm-hmm. A closer look returns in a moment with insights from the Attorney General, Ryan Pinder. Stay tuned.
I want you to make the most of your talents.
The person that you want to be is predicated on choices.
You're not going to be able to pump fake your way to success. You have to be hungry.
The barriers you face are real. Your capacity to overcome them is also real.
You have the power to lead the crowd and not let the crowd lead you.
We can't build a better country without your strengths.
We want to make sure that you are all that you can be in this nation.
Welcome back to our live coverage of Budget 2024, Changing the Status Quo, Changing Lives. Bahamians across the country are eagerly waiting to hear this administration's fiscal plan mapped out. Well, here to give us some insights into that is Attorney General Ryan Pinder. How you doing, sir?
I'm well. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. So from your perspective as the Attorney General, what does this budget, and in terms of changing the status quo and changing lives, what does that look like to you?
Well, I think the budget sets the stage for the next fiscal year. So it sets the stage of policy and the legislative agenda for the upcoming year. You would have noticed we right before coming to the budget, we tabled this suite of cannabis legislation to provide a new avenue of agriculture and industry for Bahamians. You're going to see shortly after the budget, we're going to table and debate the new intellectual property regime. That's going to create a modern day framework for the creative industry and the orange economy. All that's going to be reformed this fiscal year. So there's some very aggressive mandates that are going to be in the budget that you'll hear referenced by the Prime Minister today, but you'll hear more detail as the debate goes on, both in the House of Assembly and the Senate, on what we're looking forward to in this next fiscal year. Again, that's going to butt the status quo. That's going to change the status quo for Bahamians and bring on a new paradigm of living and doing business in the Bahamas.
Well, I want to thank you very much, Attorney General, for being here, for giving us those insights. Ladies and gentlemen, our coverage of Budget 2024, Changing the Status Quo, Changing Lives, continues right after this short break. This is BDC Living, where we bring your indoor and outdoor living dreams to life. Visit our AIP warehouse showroom and explore the wide range of luxurious bedding options designed to transform your bedroom into a sanctuary of style and comfort. Experience firsthand the ultimate comfort of our sofas and sectionals, or transform your dining area with pieces that combine style and functionality. Visit any of our BDC Living locations today and let your dream decor journey begin with us. From the floor of the House of Assembly on May 29th, Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip Davis, unveiled his government's fiscal strategy. We take you now to a portion of that budget communication.
When we came into office, the fiscal situation was bleak, with a deficit that was 13.1% of GDP. By the end of the last fiscal year, that deficit had been significantly reduced to 3.8% of GDP. And during this budget communication, I will announce a further reduction. In under 3 years, we have knocked $1 billion off our deficit. And what's important is that we pull the country back from the brink of exercising fiscal discipline while still putting our compassion for the Bahamian people at the heart of our policies. We could not do otherwise. When we came into office, Bahamians were suffering terribly. Far too many were out of work and in despair. The unemployment rate at that time was 17.6%. We moved fast. We opened up the economy. We partnered with the private sector. We encouraged innovation and new investment in tourism and other sectors. And we worked hard to promote our little special country. The employment rate is now the lowest it's been since 2008 at 8.8%. Another key fiscal measure, the debt to GDP ratio, shows how dire the situation was in 2021. In June of that year, the debt to GDP was 100.4%.
Wow.
100.4%. That means that the size of our debt was the same size, even a little bigger, than the size of our economy. Once this happens to a country, a cascade of negative consequences can gain momentum, leading to a very grim outcome. We took action to prevent those worst-case scenarios, and the latest debt statistics reflect a debt-to-GDP ratio of 79.9%, a significant achievement. We know we still have a lot of work ahead of us, but we have come a long way, and our country is finally headed in the right direction. I want to reiterate the values and the vision behind the policy decisions we have made. We have big ambitions for our country and for the Bahamian people. We are working hard to bring down the cost of living for Bahamians, to create safer communities, to support our entrepreneurs, to strengthen our borders, and to build a more inclusive economy. We are also determined to expand opportunities across our beautiful islands, throughout our archipelago. It's the first time the Bahamas has a prime minister and a deputy prime minister representing family islands. We are making the most of it, aren't we? Our core policies, including our initiatives promoting progress for our family islands, were articulated in our blueprint for change and were reflected in previous budgets, which are focused on national, economic, and personal security. These goals and policies will be further developed and expanded in the new fiscal year. Madam Speaker, we came into office with the country teetering on the brink of fiscal and economic catastrophes. Tens of thousands of Bahamians hadn't worked in months. Our children had missed more than a year of learning in their classrooms with their teachers and friends. We ended the curfew, the lockdowns, the travel visas, and the emergency orders. We opened up faster and better than competing destinations. And we did it safely by providing the free testing and the free mask, which we had said from the start were a much saner and more humane policy than lockdowns. And we did it by treating nurses and doctors as partners, not adversaries. The rapid transition from one reality to another underscored that values matter. Policy choices matter. But as I said a moment ago, while it is so important to finally be moving in the right direction, there is so much more work to do. Our country's economic recovery hasn't reached everyone yet. I know a lot of Bahamians are still hurting, and the worst global inflation crisis in decades is really hitting our families hard. That's why it is so important to build an economy with more opportunities for Bahamian advancement and ownership. Recovery was never a good enough goal. Recovery was never a good enough goal. Instead, recovery must be a stepping stone to a new era in the Bahamas. It's time for our country to take big steps forward in solving the challenges that have held us back for too long. You've heard us say it before. We didn't come here to defend the status quo. We came here to change it, because changing the status quo is the best way to change lives. Changing the status quo means challenging the systems, practices, and powers that be if they aren't serving the people well, and innovating and building something better. We are challenging the status quo in our energy sector. We just passed 2 new comprehensive pieces of legislation that provide the framework for the first serious energy reforms in the Bahamas in decades.
Yeah.
We did not need additional evidence that our outdated electricity infrastructure is falling apart, but unfortunately, there's been plenty evidence of that recently. Let's check what happened last night in the east, decaying transfer ship.
Yep.
Just fell apart.
Yep.
Nothing could be clearer. Temporary patches and band-aids aren't sufficient. Despite the enormous scale of the challenge, with BPL more than $500 million in debt, we are finalizing comprehensive energy reforms, which will upgrade and modernize our failing grid, bring solar on board in a big way, pull down sky-high costs, and increase reliability.
Got to be done.
We are also challenging the status quo in healthcare, building not just one new hospital, but two, one in New Providence and one in Grand Bahama. Even as we are renovating clinics and procuring ambulance for our family islands and making long overdue investment in mental health care. We are challenging the status quo in Grand Bahama, where the Port Authority has been earning private profits at the public's expense while failing to live up to their responsibility to develop Freeport. It's time, long past time, for change in Grand Bahama. The people of Grand Bahama deserve a credible partner with a vision for progress and shared prosperity. We are challenging the Nassau-centric status quo by recognizing that the people and potential of the family islands have long been overlooked and underestimated. That's why solar energy, new investments, and infrastructure improvements are in motion across our archipelago. We are challenging the status quo in labor relations. We signed 27 labor agreements in 30 months, after none had been signed in the previous 4 years.
Zero.
Because Bahamian workers, and we appreciate this, that Bahamian workers deserve dignity and security. We are challenging the status quo when it comes to work permits, insisting that employers live up to their obligation to identify and train Bahamians for these positions. We are challenging the status quo with a new National Youth Guard, a pioneering force to support our security forces during national emergencies. Young Bahamians can gain career-ready skills while training to serve our country. I was proud to attend the graduation of the very impressive second cohort just a few weeks ago. Their strength is our country's strength. We are challenging the status quo when it comes to tax fairness by stepping up collection from the wealthiest companies because they must shoulder their fair share of the tax burden. It is astounding that some of the wealthiest and most powerful have treated paying taxes they owe as optional. That's never going to be the case under our administration. We are challenging the status quo on unregulated communities. Our task force is demolishing shanty towns because they are unsafe, they are unhealthy, they alter life on our islands, and they are against the law. And we are challenging the status quo, which has allowed gangs to flourish. We passed tough new anti-gang measures to give the police new tools to disrupt and dismantle the gangs, which have terrorized our communities. And we are tabling new legislation this month to increase penalties for illegal weapons. It's very simple. Bahamians who follow the law shouldn't be menaced and endangered by those who don't. We are challenging, Madam Speaker, the status quo in our justice system. We put in place stricter bail laws to stop the endless cycle of those out on bail violating the terms of their bail and remaining free to commit more violence. Those who are granted bail can no longer take their freedom for granted, or so easily gamble with their lives and the lives of those in their communities. We built new courts, and we passed a law to allow defendants to choose judge-alone trials because the backlog and long delays in our system have for far too long encouraged criminals to act with impunity. We are challenging the status quo by finally redeveloping downtown, where we are tearing down the old and making way for the new. We are challenging the status quo with the first meaningful government support for affordable housing in many years and with rent to own, which will see consequential investment and progress this year. We are challenging the status quo in our schools. We are developing a new curriculum, and we have now served more than 100,000 breakfasts to primary school children, ensuring they get a healthy start to their day that allows them to focus on learning rather than the pangs of hunger in their stomachs. We are challenging the status quo by making strategic investments in our nation's food security, while expanding BAMSI to support Bahamians who want a future in our agriculture industry. We are challenging the status quo on the world stage. We work hard to get the Bahamas off the blacklist. We are strengthening partnerships to protect our borders, and we are building alliances with other small island nations to fight for economic climate justice. We are a small country that knows how to stand tall. We are bringing innovation and technology to policing. We are digitizing across the public sector. We are opening up opportunities in regulated cannabis cultivation, while for the first time allowing sick patients to use cannabis when other medicines can't relieve symptoms. We invested in free Wi-Fi in the parks. We raised the minimum wage. We created a catastrophic health care fund. These policies and others are adding up to meaningful change. Madam Speaker, we are determined to address the issues that have been holding our country back, and we are doing just that in partnership with the Bahamian people. As the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, I have the privilege of presenting this budget and telling you about the decisions we made which move our countries from sky-high deficits to fiscal stability, and while lowering VAT instead of raising it.
Well, as you heard, ladies and gentlemen, the Davis administration outlining a number of bold initiatives that align with their overall policy objectives. Chief among them, energy reform. We caught up with the minister responsible, the Honorable JoBeth Colby Davis, who says the Prime Minister's communication lays the groundwork for major changes currently in the pipeline.
Our stability in supply, reliability, and our systems is basically aged, and so now we are working towards an energy reform plan that would bring it up to date, up to standard, modernize it, and make sure that it is sufficient enough to supply the demand that is on the system based on our residential customers, our commercial customers, and what we're seeing in development of our country and new investments coming in.
Another key area of focus for the Davis administration, crime. For National Security Minister Wayne Monroe, this budget builds upon 3 years of successes in his ministry.
And so the Prime Minister pointed it out. We've recruited in 20 months more police officers, more Defense Force Marines, more correctional officers in 20 months than they did in 4.5 years. And so that was necessary to answer problems.
He foreshadowed major upgrades in technology, including the use of facial recognition, AI, and more, as the fight against crime and the criminal element continues. He notes, however, that Bahamians everywhere have an important role to play in the fight against crime as well. And it wasn't just cabinet ministers offering feedback on the Prime Minister's budget communication. Loretta Butler Turner, former Free National Movement MP and former leader of that party, shared her notable takeaways with our team as well.
The government is going to be creating a rent-to-own for home owners, persons who probably could not own a home. I think that's very important. It's nothing like owning a piece of the pie in your country. Secondly, the Prime Minister articulated that all motorized motorsports, jet skis and stuff, is going to have to be owned and operated by Bahamians. So that's going to be the domain only for Bahamians. Obviously, he articulated, especially what is of concern to me, initiatives for small businesses and entrepreneurs, which I think is powerful. Without small business, the country is not going to have their economic engines moving on all pistons. So I think that's really important. Also, I'm happy to know that the government is raising the threshold for permanent residency. And it's going up to $1 million. And also you can actually buy a central bank bond if you want to apply for this as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, our coverage of Budget 2024, Changing the Status Quo, Changing Lives, continues right after this short break.
This is the graduation of the National Youth Guard. Young Bahamians trained to assist on the front lines during national emergencies while gaining new skills to build their careers. They stepped forward to serve, growing stronger and making our country stronger too. If you think you have what it takes to join the next generation of leaders, then go online now to learn more and apply for the National Youth Guard.
Welcome back to A Closer Look's live coverage of Budget 2024 under the theme Changing the Status Quo, Changing Lives. But we have learned so much, and we have talked to so many people who have provided such wonderful insights into what we can expect from the Davis administration this fiscal year. We have heard where their priorities lie. We're talking healthcare, we're talking education, we're talking about energy reforms, and I think that is something that many Bahamians, if not all Bahamians, are particularly interested in. Joining me back on the broadcast is Marcos Ambrista. Marcos, it's been a day, and we have been here through it all.
We got to break down the budget to the simplest terms where everybody's able to understand. So of course we know that after today we have the cabinet approval that has to happen from within the cabinet ministers. You have your parliamentary approval. That's when it's presented to the House of Assembly. That's what happened today, when everybody now gets to take a time to debate, including the opposition. And then we have Senate approval. Everything that happens in the House of Assembly, we know that it's sent over. And then lastly, we'll have the royal asset, and that's where the Governor General will actually, it's sent to the Governor General, and then the Governor General will grant asset, and the budget becomes law and is now enacted. So we have a full rundown of what happens after today's bidding. And so I can't wait to see what happens and how it changes the status quo.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me today, Marcos.
Always
You've been an amazing co-host as per usual. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Budget 2024 ACL Presents. We thank you so much for tuning in. We thank you so much for sticking around. We hope you have enjoyed our broadcast. We hope you've learned something. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Arabina Pia. Good day, everyone.